What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
What
the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
Aloha and welcome to another exciting episode of the Birds Report podcast here on A2D Radio. Well, another week, another imperfect Eagles win. They beat the Bucs 25-11 to go 3-0 and have a really, really good chance this week to make it 4-0 when they face the Washington Commanders at the Lincoln in one of just three Sunday 1 o'clock games on their schedule this season. Washington's quarterback, Sam Howell, was sacked 9 times in their loss to Buffalo on Sunday. I think he's got 19 sacks on the season, the most in the NFL. So that bodes well for an Eagles pass rush, which only has 6 sacks, but has put more pressure on quarterbacks than any team in the league in the first 3 weeks of the season. I am really excited about today's show. My guest is a longtime friend who is a broadcasting legend in Philadelphia. He's been a sports broadcaster for more than 50 years. And in 2017, he was inducted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. He was the city's first ever television sports producer. He eventually went off to the West Coast to seek his fame and fortune as a morning drive time sports talk show host before returning to his hometown. The man known as Philly Billy currently hosts the Sports Chatter on WCHE 1520 AM and co-hosts Raleigh and the Loon with my other good buddy Paul Domowitch on WBCB 1490 AM. Also, for several years now, he's been Merrill Reese and Mike Quick's spotter on Eagles broadcasts. I've had the honor of being on his show more times than I can remember, and I am really excited about having him join me on this podcast today. So, Bill, welcome to the Birds Report.
Pleasure, Domo. How are you today?
How you doing?
Not too bad.
Bill, before I forget, when I sat down at my desk, I looked to my right at some of the books I had over there, and look what I found. Your memoir, which came out just about 5-6 years ago.
Yep.
No curveballs.
I tell
my
it like it
greatest
is, Domo.
And anybody out there that is looking for a book about somebody that tells it like it is, they need to go to Amazon.com and get a copy of that because it's great.
Thank you,
Bill
Domo.
and I have in 2021 and 2022 we made the 7-hour drive together to Canton for the Hall of Fame ceremonies. I did not make it this year, and he found himself in even better company than me. He drove with Dick and Carol Vermeil, who are much more interesting than I am. That must have been a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Carol and Dick Vermeil are great, great people. You know, we talked about this a number of times. I thought Dick Vermeil should have been in the Hall of Fame a lot sooner than he was inducted. I mean, what he did with the Eagles in 1980 to take them to the Super Bowl was remarkable. Remember, no draft picks, no free agency. I mean, 19 undrafted free agents made that team. And Vermeil, that is the essence of coaching. That's when you coach them up. And he coached up that football team.
Yeah. You know, we're getting ready. I'm a Hall of Fame selector, as you know, and we're getting ready for the first vote to reduce like more than 120 candidates down to 25. And I'm really hoping the last 3 years, Eric Allen, who played for the Eagles from 88 to 94, everybody remembers him as a key part of that, gangrene defense. He's made the final 25 the last 3 years, but he has not made it beyond that to the final 15 where we can discuss him. And I'm really hoping that this year that changes because he's a guy that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
No doubt about it. And another guy on that gangrene defense, how about Seth Joyner? You look at Seth Joyner's numbers, he should also be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Eric Allen was an absolute great shutdown corner. Made a lot of big plays for the Philadelphia Eagles under Buddy Ryan. He was a player that they would not throw in his area. They would go to the other side of the field. I agree with you. He should be on the list of 15 and should be discussed this year for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was a great, great corner.
You know, when you think of all the great players on those Buddy Ryan and Bud Carson defenses from the late 80s and early 90s, only one guy's in the Hall of Fame, and that's Reggie White, and that's a disgrace. Being in the room, I mean, a big reason is that they put too much emphasis on teams that win Super Bowls. I mean, you look at Tampa Bay, which, I mean, Tony Dungy and Gruden had some great defenses, but I don't know that those Dungy's defenses compare to the ones that Buddy and Bud Carson had, and yet they got Rondé Barber became their fourth Hall of Fame inductee this year. So, and while Rondé certainly deserves to be in, Eric Allen and Seth Joyner, I can even argue that Clyde Simmons probably deserves serious consideration. Problem is with a lot of those guys, they're veterans now. They're not modern era candidates, and they go into a pool of veterans where it's really tough to get in the Hall of Fame after you're no longer a modern era candidate.
I agree with you about the teams that win Super Bowls. They get a lot more recognition for the Hall of Fame, and that's very unfair. I mean, as we mentioned, Eric Allen was an outstanding corner. Seth Joyner, one of the smartest players ever to put on a uniform. I mean, you've got to look at what a guy, I know it's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport to a certain extent. And those guys, I think, deserve recognition in the Hall of Fame. Even Dick Vermeil said Seth Joyner deserves the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I would venture to guess he would say Eric Allen deserves the Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. It's a very tough situation that you're in, Damo, because it's tough to pare down Hall of Famers. Who's a Hall of Famer? Who's not a Hall of Famer? There's a very, very fine line.
Yeah, it's not easy. Let's talk Eagles 2023, Bill. Your thoughts on their 3-0 start?
Defense. And thank goodness they got a guy named Jalen Carter. I took a lot of flack from a lot of people when I said he was the best player in the draft. And he's proven it right now. He's only going to get better. I think he could be another Jerome Brown and even better than Jerome Brown. His quickness, his athleticism, his strength, beyond belief. The offense, I'm a little concerned about. I think they're a little bit too vanilla. I'm not talking about the running game, but the way they're using Jalen Hurts. How about a couple pitch outs? How about a bubble screen here and there? How about a jet sweep? We got to have a little bit more imagination. How about a shovel pass like Kansas City and Miami have used in the past? I want to see some more imagination in the offense.
So I guess that means you would like to see Brian Johnson kind of do a better job with the play calling then.
Oh, open it up a little bit. Maybe they want to take it slowly and, evolve because, look, the first part of the schedule, they got Washington, as you mentioned, 19 sacks for Sam Howell. So they should be able to sack him 8 or 9 times. Then they have the Los Angeles Rams. They lost their starting left tackle, so they could make hay out there. Then they have the Jets. That's a train wreck right now. So you're talking about a team that could conceivably be 6-0 before they face the Miami Dolphins. And believe me, they have to make hay now because it gets tougher. Miami, then they have Washington again, Dallas. Even Dallas, even though they laid an egg against Arizona, they still are a talented team, even without Diggs, the corner. But I believe the Eagles will open it up and they don't want to show their entire playbook right now to the better teams because they have some things up their sleeve.
Yeah. You mentioned the offense struggling, and they did a little better they did a lot better this week. Certainly the running game is at it's in midseason form the last 2 weeks. I mean, that inside zone that they're just ramming at teams is just amazing. I mean, the running lanes that Swift had this week, that Gainwell had this week, it's just amazing. And I mean, and they were even able to throw the ball deep. I think they had 5 completions of 20 yards or more. So that was improvement. Yet they were 1 for 5 in the red zone. They're still not. Jalen made some throws that he clearly, besides including the 2 interceptions, there were some other guys that he missed that last year you didn't see that. So there are things that he's got to improve on. But I guess I don't know if we're nitpicking to say that at this point. I mean, they, like you said, they're 3-0. They're probably going to be 4-0 this week. I mean, where's the fine line? Is there a fine line between nitpicking and just trying to, objectively break down a performance?
I guarantee you the coaches are thinking the same way you're thinking, Damo. That's the way you got to think. You got to say, hey, we did this right, but what about these issues we have on certain plays? 1 for 5 in the red zone doesn't cut it with me. You've got to convert those into touchdowns. All right? They're so important. And when you leave points on the field, it comes back to haunt you. You got to capitalize on those situations inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 1 for 5 is, against a good team, and I don't consider Tampa Bay a good team overall. I mean, Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield. When they face better quarterbacks and better offenses, not finishing in the red zone is not going to be good enough. So yeah, I agree with you there. Their run defense, Bill, and you mentioned Jalen Carter earlier. I mean, he and his former college teammate Jordan Davis, the 2 of them inside there. I mean, Jalen Carter's probably right now a more complete player than Jordan Davis. But even Davis, I think Davis is going to eventually. I mean, right now he's just a massive run stuffer. I mean, you saw plays Sunday or Monday night where he was just. I mean, you can't move him. And there was one play I can't remember when it happened, but I mean, the running back actually kind of went alongside of him, and he reaches back and just grabs them and brings them back. I mean, it's just. But Jalen Carter is, you had mentioned Jerome Brown. I mean, I think the 2 of them could end up having the effect on this defense that Jerome and Reggie White had on that, on those 80s and 90s defenses.
When you talk about Jordan Davis, look at his numbers at the combine. I know sometimes we go overboard with the combine. He's a freak athlete. I mean, unbelievable. Jalen Carter is also an exceptional athlete. I mean, Jordan Davis at 340 pounds, he could probably play at 400 pounds if he wanted to, but he's such a dominant force inside. I know he had a down rookie year, and everybody was wondering if Jordan Davis would step up to the plate. He certainly has. And Jalen Carter will be unstoppable when he learns all the nuances of offensive linemen, what they like to do, hold, grab, things like that. But those 2 guys in the middle of the defense will be factors for a number of years. And I give Howie Roseman credit. He took a lot of people said, why Jalen Carter? He's had all these problems off the field. Look at the tape. That's all you have to look at. And we've had a lot of guys who've had questionable characters coming in the National Football League over the years. They're unbelievable. These people are saying, oh, he's a bad guy. Well, he hasn't had any problems here in Philadelphia, has he? He had some unfortunate incident with the car, the drag racing. Of course, he was out of shape at the combine. Look, sometimes we over-evaluate instead of saying, look at the tape, look what he did at Georgia.
How important, Bill, do you think it is, and how important was it as far as Howie's decision that he had? Well, he was. I don't know when Fletcher re-signed. I can't remember the date, but having Cox in that locker room, having Brandon Graham in that locker room, in addition to all the Georgia players, as far as having those guys around Carter to make this transition a lot more successful than maybe
it's very
other teams.
Important, Donald, to have that veteran presence. I mean, Fletcher Cox was an outstanding player at Mississippi State. Brandon Graham really emerged after the first couple of years in the National Football League. So he has guys to look up to and talk to about how to play the position. That's so important for a young player. When you can lean on a player like Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham, how would you go after this guy, this right guard? Or how would you go after this defensive or this offensive tackle? They could give you a little tip here and there that will help you during the game.
Yeah. When they drafted Carter, Bill, did you have any reservations? Or, I mean, did you think it was a move they absolutely
none whatsoever? I was confident from day one. When Merle Reese said to me, I don't know about Jalen Carter, I said, Merle, and I'll go back to look at the tape. He was the most dominant defensive, offensive player in the draft. And teams who passed on him, like Seattle. What's Seattle thinking about? They took Witherspoon. Jalen Carter fits their mold right there. The Bears, they're a train wreck. They traded out of there. They could have used Jalen Carter. Both those organizations should be called on the carpet for not taking him.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about their safeties, Bill. It was an area of concern going into the season. Reed Blankenship on Monday night played a terrific game. He led the team in tackles, had that big interception. They gave Sidney Brown, the rookie, the most playing time he's gotten so far, which even though it was only 12 snaps, I believe, one of them was that big pass break up in the end zone on the pass to Mike Evans. I mean, I think those two guys are going to turn into really a pair of big time safeties. And they're inexpensive. I mean, Reed Blankenship was a undrafted free agent last year, so he's not going to get any real money for a while. Sidney Brown was a mid-round pick, so he's on a cheap contract, rookie contract. So I mean, they're in pretty good shape there suddenly at that position. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Blankenship, an undrafted free agent out of Middle Tennessee, and I wonder what do teams do in the evaluation process? Right?
Yeah,
he should have been a draftable player. And the other kid, Sidney Brown, I loved him in college. Remember, two of the other teammates were drafted before him in the draft. Sidney Brown is a heat-seeking missile out there. Once he learns the defensive schemes, he's going to be an outstanding safety in the National Football League. I love this kid when I saw him in college, and I love him now because he'll hurt you. I know the rules have changed a lot, but he will send a message when you go over the middle.
Yeah. Bill, we've got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
We're back with Bill Werndl. Bill, let's talk slot corner. It's the one position on defense that really scares me from their standpoint right now. They lost Devontae Maddox, who was one of the league's better corners, but just couldn't stay healthy and got hurt again, and he's out for the season. They this past week kind of moved James Bradbury inside, which was okay because this week at least Mike Evans played a lot in the slot, and it was a good matchup for them, a big guy against a big guy. But it's not. I mean, Bradbury's you want him outside. That's where he's at his best, and so they got to do something there. They don't really have anybody on the roster that's excels as a slot. We've got about a month until the to the NFL trade deadline. You see guys out there that maybe they can think about making a deal for that can help this defense this season?
Two guys that come to mind right away. I looked at all the rosters today. Jeremy Chin, Carolina. Carolina's not going anywhere this year. So we're going to look for more draft picks going forward. All right? It may cost you probably a second-round pick to get Jeremy Chin. The other kid from the Chargers, Asante Samuel Jr., is another guy I would consider. It may not be as expensive as Chin. Remember, Chin was on the Eagles' radar when they drafted Jalen Hurts. They liked him a lot. And so they were talking about Hurts, Chin. They decided to go with Hurts. But Jeremy Chin would be the guy that I would focus in on because I think he really could help the slot corner position. The one thing they lost, Maddox, they lost McPherson, who was the backup. Yeah. Mario Goodrich, I'm a little nervous about when he's out there. All right. He hasn't played that much. You got to if you're all in for the Super Bowl, you've got to make a move.
Yeah. Bill, I apologize for my dog interrupting your discourse. He was barking a lot. Chin's an interesting guy.
I bark a lot too.
Chin's an interesting guy. I mean, because he's a big guy. He's 225 pounds, I want to say 6'3", maybe. I mean, he was a linebacker / safety coming out. Is he too big for the slot, or do you think he can play there?
I think he can. He's listed as a nickel back with Carolina. I think he would be it gives you a lot of flexibility on defense too. You can move him around. You can even use him as a blitzer here and there. All right, and rotate maybe another safety over to the slot on certain downs.
Yeah, well, it's a position that Howie certainly is thinking a lot about these days, and what he does there could end up affecting whether or not this team gets to the Super Bowl and whether or not he wins another Executive of the Year award. Let's move to the offense, Bill. Wanted to get your thoughts on Jalen Hurts. What have you seen from him in these first 3 games?
I think he's a little tentative right now. I think a lot of teams with Belichick gave you the blueprint, then Brian Flores, then Todd Bowles. They're daring him to run to a certain extent. So he's got to drop back, maybe fire some more passes in Dallas Goedert's area. More swing passes to DeAndre Swift. That'll loosen everything up because if these safeties and linebackers are cheating up to the line of scrimmage, that opens it up. And even the crossing patterns with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are there. I think he's got to be more his judgment's got to be quicker than it is right now. I think he's a little tentative. I think he's a perfectionist, and he wants everything to be so on point. But if he loosens up a little bit, I think he can open up the offense. But I think they're doing this the way they're approaching it is they're saying to themselves, we don't want to show our whole bag of tricks right now. Let them do this, and we'll adjust.
Yeah, you had mentioned – absolutely. I mean, you had mentioned throwing the ball to Swift. I mean, I think Swift and Gainwell are two of the better pass-catching backs in the league. And I don't just mean guys you can throw a swing pass to. I mean, these are guys that can run routes that can line up all over the formation, that can be a real threat against defenses. And I think that's one of those things they're kind of holding back on. There's no need to use it right now. We might get to Dallas, and suddenly you're going to see Swift and Gainwell combine for like 10 catches and 110 yards or something, because I just think both of them are weapons, not only as runners, but as receivers.
The wheel route. How about an isolation with a linebacker or safety with Gainwell or Swift? They'd have to use a lasso to stop those guys. All right? That's when you want to isolation. You want to get either Swift or Gainwell out in space at a wheel route on either a safety or a linebacker. That's a touchdown every time.
Yeah. It's funny watching the game on Monday night. Brian Johnson's known Jalen Hurts since Jalen was 4 years old, and Brian was playing for Jalen's dad down in the Houston area. But as Troy Aikman pointed out, the last 2 years he's been Jalen's quarterback's coach, and that's a different relationship than being the offensive coordinator and now having to be in sync with him on the play calling. And he said that's going to take time. Takes time with most new play callers, but he thinks eventually the two of them are going to work real well together. It's just that maybe early on there have been some glitches.
Absolutely. We saw it in game one against Belichick. The one thing that concerns me, now it didn't happen against Tampa Bay, but against both New England and Minnesota, they gave up big leads. When you have a team down, you got to step on his throat and put him out of his misery. Yeah. Simple as that. You can't blow those big leads. And that was a cause for concern. That didn't happen against Tampa Bay.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm going to, be interested in seeing with Sean Desai's defense. He's got this incredible pass rush, and they're going to put pressure on quarterbacks all season long. Their sack numbers are going to start to, increase. But I don't understand why he plays so much off coverage. I mean, you would think you would want to delay these receivers from getting into their routes so you can buy your pass rush an extra split, a fraction of a second to get to the quarterback. Because right now the quarterbacks against this pass rush are thinking, I got to get the ball out quickly. You saw that in the second half on Sunday when they were making that comeback you spoke about. Suddenly, and I don't know why they didn't do it earlier, but Baker Mayfield started to get the ball out quick. I mean, he was just, 3 steps, bam. It was just, that's why I don't understand why they don't do more of pressing on some of these receivers, because they've got, they've got people that can do it. Bradbury, Slay. These guys can play press coverage. I don't know if it's just, Desai is it comes from the Vic Fangio school of defense, and it's a great school to be from. It's like the Harvard of defenses, but Vic wasn't a big press guy. He played off coverage a lot of the times. So I'm going to be interested to see if they adjust to that, because you saw it Monday night in that second half.
Domo, you make a great point. You have to use press coverage periodically just to change up the look. The quarterback then says they're up in press coverage, then drop in the zone periodically. You've got to mix up your coverages. I don't like when you're the vanilla coverage always playing a zone. I think a zone opens up a lot of areas that are uncovered. So I would like to see them get up in the face of wide receivers. This week you have who's a wide receiver from Washington, Dotson and McLaurin. Those two guys get up in the face right now. Yeah. Don't let them get off the line of scrimmage, and really work them over a little bit. Because as you mentioned, Sam Howell got sacked 9 times? You can get 29 times against him if you're up in press coverage. And I want to see them use Reddick, Nolan Smith, and Josh Sweat in certain situations. You want to bring a lot of heat. And I like to see a little bit more blitzing from the side, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, they had their second straight 200-yard rushing game on Monday night. They ran 48 times against Minnesota. They ran the ball 40 times on Monday night against Tampa Bay. Their run play percentage in these last 2 games is like 57.5%. That's high. I don't think this is their long-term plan. I think they want to have a little bit more balance. But what are your thoughts on 2 years ago when when Jalen was still feeling his way. They got to a point, I think 7 games into that 2021 season, when they realized Jalen was not quite ready to just put this team on his shoulders and lead them. A.J. Brown wasn't here yet. So at that point, Nick made a conscious decision. We're just going to hammer the ball. And they ran, second half of that season, they just ran really well. And it worked, got them into the playoffs until they met Tom Brady. And that was that. Do they need to find balance here? I mean, can they win with the recipe they've used the last 2 weeks?
I think you want to have a little bit more balance, but I like a running attack for 2 reasons. It burns the clock and also keeps your defense fresh. And that's what you need in the fourth quarter, a fresh defense. So if you run the ball, you work the clock, and it makes teams a little impatient when they come on the field. They've got to score. I love the running game. I think look at San Francisco. What's their bread and butter? They want to run the ball. Remember a few years ago when Garoppolo's the quarterback? They threw the ball 7 times in a playoff game. Did they win that game? Absolutely. Running and defense wins championship. You throw the ball all over the lot. Like Woody Hayes once said, 3 things happen when you throw the ball, and 2 are bad. Incompletions and interceptions. So I love the running attack.
You sound like your buddy Joe Banner.
Does he agree with me?
Hey, we've talked a lot over the years about Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, some good, some bad. His evolution has been really interesting to me. You go back to 2014, he loses a power struggle at the time to Chip Kelly. And, Jeffrey Lurie keeps him on the staff, but he's basically in charge of desks and chairs. Chip Kelly eventually gets fired. Howie survives and becomes the general manager. And his growth over the last 4 or 5 years has been, or 6, I guess, if you go back to the 2017 Super Bowl win, has just been incredible. I mean, he's made a lot more right decisions than he's made wrong ones. What are your thoughts on Howie's development as a personnel guy?
He's developed into a good general manager. I'm not going to take it away from him. He's made some mistakes. The one that comes to mind right away is Justin Jefferson. If they drafted Justin Jefferson, they have a shot at Micah Parsons. Everybody likes Devontae Smith, and I like him as well. When he came out of college, I liked him. People said, well, he's only 6 feet, 170 pounds. Don't worry about that. He's a very productive wide receiver. Yes, he has evolved into a good general manager. Remember, the guy that really pushed for Jalen Hurts was not Howie, but Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson had enough of Carson Wentz about his poor decision-making, and he decided, hey, Jalen Hurts could be that guy if Wentz goes down. Of course, Wentz did not play well that year. Wentz felt uncomfortable with Hurts around him, and the rest is history. But Howie's done a very good job. He was executive of the year last year, and he deserved it. He put together a solid roster. Now you have to keep building as far as, when you're picking late in the draft. We saw it with Belichick. We saw it with Chuck Noll. When you're picking late in the draft, every couple of years, you got to get up in those premium picks. You may have to surrender a second-round pick to move up to top 15. But you have to do that because the premium picks are anywhere from 1 to 15. So when you're designing your game plan for the draft going forward, is you got to say, hey, I'm picking 29th, 30th. I got to move up in the top 15. That's my philosophy, and I think Howie ought to adapt that as well.
Right. Bill, we got to pay the bills again, so we're going to take a 30-second break.
I'll pay them.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs. skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
And we're back with Philly Billy. Bill, let's talk Tush Push. Monday night, they used the Tush Push 5 times. Jalen got 4 first downs. They've used it 8 times this season. They've been successful 7. All 3 of Jalen's touchdown runs have been on the quarterback sneak Tush Push. Most of the people I talk to hate it. I think it should be banned. I was curious, what's your take on it?
I don't like it at all. I think it should be eliminated from football. They didn't have it until 2004, I believe. They put it back in the rule book and allowed the push. I think it really cheapens the sport to a certain extent. I don't know what you feel about it, but I don't like the push. I think the NFL's got to look long and hard at the competition committee this year, because it just cheapens the game to a certain extent. You mean you can't have a handoff or a quick pass in the end zone? I do not like that. Or on 4th and 1, you can't have a quarterback sneak. Come on, we've been having it for years on years. Why they eliminate the first place and why they bring it back? That's a big question. I just think it really cheapens the game.
Yeah, I'm an agnostic about it. I don't. If they got rid of it, I'd say I'm fine. I understand why. It's not a great look. It looks like rugby. I was shocked in February because I had written a couple stories on it. I thought it was going to be banned. I had talked to Dean Blandino, the former director of supervisors for the league, who now works for Fox. He felt sure that the competition committee would recommend banning it, and they didn't. They never even voted on it. I don't know why they backed off. And now what confuses me is other teams. Some teams are using kind of a varied form of it, but it's legal, so I don't understand why everybody's not using it right now, because it's basically automatic. Although I understand, Jalen Hurts is a different animal. He's so damn strong. He can deadlift and squat like 600 pounds. So when regardless of who's pushing on his back, when you've got him as the guy with the ball, and Jalen Kelsey is the guy with leverage in front of him, who's finding just enough room for him to squeeze in there. I don't know that any system is going to prevent that, but I just don't know why more teams aren't using it, whether you like it or not.
Well, the thing is also, it's a big factor as far as injuries are concerned. One of these games they had the push. I don't want to see Hurts coming out, but that's a possibility. Now, these defensive linemen look at a quarterback as raw meat, and they'll do something underneath that pile that is a little dirty, and they won't be able to detect it, and they could hurt Jalen Hurts. That's what I worry about.
I guess, Jalen, I don't think many people are going to mess with Jalen. He can take care of himself, and his offensive lineman would pretty much maim anybody that tried to hurt him. So, I understand your point. Hey, let's move on to the rest of the league. The question I wanted to ask you: a lot of people are seem to want to crown the Miami Dolphins right now after their 70-20 win over Denver as the next great team in the NFL. And I have a lot of respect for that offense right now with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle, with Tua. But I think it's a little early to put the crown on them. I'm curious what your take is on them watching them so far.
They're one of the fastest teams in the National Football League, as we all know, but way too early to say, hey, these are the best. This is the best team in the AFC, and they're going to be in the Super Bowl. Denver is a total train wreck right now. Total. Sean Payton lost the quarterback. The quarterback, I don't think, wants any parts of the Denver Broncos. They don't have a very good offensive line. They have no system at all in place. I mean, if Peyton could cut him today or trade him today, he would, because that situation is very toxic. And Peyton and Wilson are not on the same page. And to beat them the way Miami beat them, 70-20, those Denver Bronco players quit. Let's be honest. So let's see what this week. I believe they have New York, right? The Jets, Miami, the Jets, who have a very, very good defense. An awful offense with Zach Wilson, but they have a tremendous defense. So let's see how many points they put on against the Jets this week, because the Jets are one of the better defensive teams. It's unfortunate that Rodgers went down, because I thought they would make a lot of noise in the AFC.
Bill, the NFL's minor league system, also known as college football, is going through some upheaval right now. I mean, with the transfer portal, with the nil deals, it's crazy. It's turned that into chaos. I mean, you're starting to have, I think, a lot of the coaches that thought they'd spend their whole life as college coaches now, are starting to send messages to the NFL that, hey, next time there's an opening, I want out of college ball because this is crazy. Guys, leaving after 1 year, quarterbacks making $10 million a year, like Caleb Williams with all his endorsement deals. I mean, when you look at college football right now, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a total mess created by my favorite people, the NCAA. These people had no vision. My good friend Sonny Vaccaro said, we got to do something. And they said, no, we're going to sue you, Sonny. They lost every litigation in court. They're 0 for 1,000, all right? But they didn't want to listen. They want to put their money in their pockets. They didn't worry about the kids, all right? Let me give you a little history lesson. At one time, if you got a scholarship, it was for 4 years, all right? 4 years. The only way you could lose that scholarship was academic incompetence, if you did not do your required work, all right? Today, they're 1 year renewables, all right? 1 year. How do you think Deion Sanders got 56 players to transfer to Colorado? He ran those other kids off. So these colleges, because they're making all this money, said, the hell with them. They're not worried about the student athlete. They could care less about the student athlete. They were just concerned in feathering their own nest. The NCAA with Mark Emmert was an absolutely an abomination. And the college president should be called on the carpet, because they allowed the transfer portal and the NIL. They wouldn't listen to a man who knew what was going on, and they had no vision whatsoever. And what is happening to college athletics, it falls on the NCAA and the college president. They went to sleep at the switch.
Yeah. You mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, college coaches that are starting to look towards the NFL for jobs because their life is too short to deal with that aggravation on the college level. I'm curious what your thoughts are on a guy that many think within the next 3 or 4 years is going to try to make a move to the NFL, and that's Deion Sanders. That he's a short timer at Colorado. Do you see him as a viable head coach in the NFL?
No question about it. I'm not going to say 3 or 4 years. I'm going to say within 2 years, he'll be a head football coach in the NFL. All right? Look, Deion Sanders has that charisma. Now, an owner's got to accept Deion Sanders for who he is. He's not going to come in there and be a milquetoast, all right? He's going to say, we want this, that, all right? Simple as that. But he'll get a head coaching job within the next 2 years, because he will win at Colorado, and he'll be a hot item on the coaching carousel.
Yeah, I agree. Before I let you go, Bill, wanted to talk to you quickly about the NFL's 2024 draft. A lot of people think this is the might be the best quarterback crop in recent history. I mean, you've got guys like Caleb Williams, who I mentioned earlier, Drake May from North Carolina, Oregon's Bo Mix, Washington's Michael Penix, Duke's Riley Leonard, and Prime's kid, Shadur Sanders. What's your thoughts on that quarterback class? Is it going to be one of the best in recent history?
I think it's a solid class. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best ever. I think the two guys at the top of the list are Caleb Williams and May from North Carolina. All right? They're the two best guys. Now, here's the problem with Caleb Williams. Make a lot of money at USC. He doesn't want to be drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, all right? He doesn't want to go to that place. So he's going to say, hey, look, I'm thinking about staying in for another year, making another $10 million. So that's the situation with those guys. I'm not going to say it's a very solid class, very solid. But I'm not going to say it's going to be the best class of all time. A number of years ago, you had the Blackledge draft. Remember that? That didn't turn out too well. I mean, I think Marino came out in that draft as well, and he was the last quarterback taken in the first round, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
So that's what made that draft. And a few years ago, you had Akili Smith, Donovan McNabb, you had Couch. Everybody was ballyhooing that. That's the next great draft. That fizzled as well. I think sometimes we go overboard and saying, oh, this is going to be the next great draft of college players. And look how many of the college players have fallen flat on their face. San Francisco gave up a king's ransom to get Trey Lance. Where's he now? With the Dallas Cowboys. Carson Wentz, they moved all the way up to second. He can't even find employment in the National Football League. All right? So you just go through. Mitch Trubisky, Chicago moved up to get him. A colossal failure. So, I mean, they have to look at, when they're looking at these players, they better damn know that this guy is the guy that's going to answer their questions and be that franchise quarterback. I hate when people say he's a franchise quarterback after 2 or 3 years. Wait till he's 10 years in the league, and then you can call him a franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Bill, I appreciate you giving me 45 minutes of your valuable time today.
I don't have valuable time. You have valuable time. I don't have valuable time. I love doing this stuff.
And you do it well. And I can't wait to be.
Appreciate it, Domo.
I can't wait to be on your show very soon. So you take care, and thanks again for spending time with me and talking Eagles, NFL, and college.
Not a problem, Domo. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, sir.
You bet. And for anybody out there, go get this book. It's Bill's memoir. You can get it on Amazon.com, and I highly recommend it. It's a great read. And we are going to take our third commercial break here, and we'll be right back. And I'll have my NFL top 10 rankings and bottom 5 for you.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Okay, we're back with the final 12 minutes of our show, and we're going to do my weekly power rankings. I am going to move my camera here, my laptop in a second so that you can see our board, and we'll go through the bottom 5 first and then the top 10. So let me see if I can get this straight first. There we go. At number 28 in our bottom 5 this week, we've got the Vikings 0-3. The team that set a record last year for close wins is 0-3 and has lost those 3 games by a total of 13 points this year. So, you got to be careful what you wish for. Close wins quickly turn into close losses. And this team wasn't what everybody thought it was last year. and now they're 0-3. At 29, or at 29, we've got the Tennessee Titans. They lost to Cleveland 27-3 on Sunday. They're 1-2. Their offense is a mess against Cleveland. 8 first downs, 94 total yards. Derrick Henry averaged 1.8 yards per carry. Ryan Tannehill was sacked 5 times. Enough said. Number 30, we've got the Carolina Panthers, who are winless at 0-3. It didn't take long for little Bryce Young to get hurt. And, Miles Sanders is averaging 3.4 yards per carry, which is half of what DeAndre Swift is averaging. So sometimes money isn't worth the offensive line you left for another one. 31st, we've got the Chicago Bears, 28 starts into his NFL career. The light still hasn't gone on for Justin Fields. Kind of wonder how Caleb Williams is feeling right now about playing in the Windy City, because I think this team is going to look for another quarterback after the season. And dead last this week is the Denver Broncos after their 70-20 loss to the I forgot who they lost to. Miami Dolphins. When you give up 70 points, there's not a ranking low enough for you. Sean Payton, you reap what you sow, buddy. And now we're going to move into the top 10. At number 10, we've got Green Bay Packers. 18-17 win over the Saints. They came back from a 17-0 deficit in the fourth quarter. Jordan Love has looked okay, but they're 2-1. The number 9 team, we've got the Browns. They're 2-1 as well. They were unranked. They were not in the top 10 last week. Loss of Nick Chubb is going to matter as the season goes along, but it didn't matter against the Titans last week. Number 8, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are also 2-1 after a season opening throttling at the hands of the 49ers. They've won back-to-back games against the Browns and the Raiders. TJ Watt already has 6 sacks and is looking at Defensive Player of the Year candidate along with Micah Parsons and a host of others, including the Eagles' Jalen Carter. Number 7, we've got the Detroit Lions, 2-1. I don't know what to make of their week 2 home loss to Seattle. I'm going to chalk it up to a bad day at the office, I guess. But they bounced back this week with an easy win over the Falcons, and so they're moving up from 10 to 7. Number 6, your Dallas Cowboys, America's team. They fell from 3. They gave up 222 rushing yards to the Arizona Cardinals. Let that sink in for a minute. 222 rushing yards to the Cardinals. Oh, and Dak Prescott is back throwing interceptions again. Number 5, we've got the Miami Dolphins. A lot of so-called experts want to put this team call them unstoppable and put them at number 1 after they put up 70 on Sean Payton and the Broncos. But let's see how they do against the Bills and the Eagles in October before we give them the Lombardi Trophy. Number 4, we've got the Bills. Bills are 2-1 now after that initial opening week 1 loss to the Jets. They've beaten Las Vegas. They've beaten Washington. They sacked Sam Howell 9 times last week, but they're facing Tua and the Dolphins this week. And Tua's been sacked once in 3 games, so that'll be an interesting test for them. Number 3, Kansas City Chiefs, 2-1. Look who's found a defense. The Chiefs have given up just 40 points in their first 3 games. When Patrick Mahomes kicks it into high gear, this is going to be a tough team to beat. It already is a tough team to beat, but I'm talking another Super Bowl victory. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers, one of the 3 unbeaten teams, along with the Eagles and the Miami Dolphins. They've given up 30 points in all, or they scored 30 points in all 3 of their victories. Brock Purdy hasn't thrown an interception and has a 106.3 passer rating. Christian McCaffrey already has 423 yards from scrimmage. So this offense is very, very good. And number 1, again, played an imperfect game against Tampa Bay, but won by 2 touchdowns. They're still a work in progress, but they've converted 10 of 16 third downs on Monday night and racked up nearly 500 yards against the Bucs in a double-digit road win. So they still hold on to the top spot in my mind. So that's our top 10 and our bottom 5. Wanted to go over a couple of numbers with you before we go. You can read a lot of my stat packages on jacobsports.com on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays before the game. Get you prepped up for the game. Eagles right now are second in the league in time of possession. They're averaging 36 minutes, 24 seconds per game. Only the Browns are better at 36-35. Eagles are averaging 71.3 offensive plays per game in their first 3 games, averaged 66.1 last year. So I don't know, as I mentioned when we were talking to Bill, you're not going to see 40 carry games every week. It fit the bill the last 2 weeks. I think they want to run the ball a lot, but they got to be careful. I thought DeAndre Swift's biggest impact with this offense was going to be as a receiver. I still think it will be, but he's proven that he's so shifty and elusive. But I don't want him carrying the ball more than 13, 14, maybe like Sunday or Monday night 15 times. So it'll be interesting to watch how much this run, how much the run game changes as we go along here. Personnel groupings in the first 3 games, 214 total plays, 142 or 66.3% have been with 11 personnel. 11 personnel is 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers. 57 plays or 26.6% have been with 12 personnel, and 15 or 7% have been with 13 personnel, 3 tight ends. 12 personnel is 1 running back, 2 tight ends, and 2 receivers. They played a lot of 12 personnel in the second half last week against the Bucs. DeAndre Swift, his numbers are interesting. He with 11 personnel this season, he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. With 12 personnel, he's averaging 8.0 yards per carry. So, either one, he's running the ball pretty damn well. But 2 tight ends, typically you're going to run the ball better because you got 2 tight ends out there. You're forcing them to the idea is you're forcing them to bring an extra linebacker out there, and then you can beat it with the pass if you've got a tight end like Dallas Goedert. So we're going to see. I think Dallas Goedert's numbers are going to start to rise too. I think he's going to be a guy they take advantage of on screens and shorter routes as we go along here. He started to break out this past week against Tampa Bay. Let's see what happens against Washington. Jalen Hurts has completed just 3 of 12 passes that have traveled 20 yards in the air or more in these first 3 games, which those are considered deep balls. But 2 of those 3 completions, including 1 Monday night to Alameda Zaccheaus, have been for touchdowns. So that part of their game is going to come. the biggest problem there is teams are not letting them throw deep. But Minnesota and New England both used umbrellas on the back end so that it was going to take a lot to get the ball past their back guys, because that's not how they were going to allow you to beat them. And lastly, I talked about the Monday night's win being imperfect. What I mean by that is they were 1 for 5 in the red zone. That was probably the biggest shortcoming, and that has to change. Jalen Hurts was 1 for 7 passing wise in the red zone. They need to become a better passing team in the red zone. Last year, they were a very successful red zone team, but it was almost exclusively with the run. They need to become more balanced, not only on the rest of the field, but particularly in the red zone. And we'll see if that happens on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. So I want to thank my producer, Ralph Dell, for guiding me through another show. And I really want to thank my guest today. Bill Werndl is one of my closest friends and a terrific guy, terrific broadcaster, and one of the greats. And his knowledge is just I love to tap his brain. Anyway, so we'll let you go. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Birds Report right here on A2D Radio.